Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So today I got a fun and exciting and completely random video for you guys today, and one that you've been asking for. So consider this a little bit of a test to see the interest, and maybe if you watch it, I will make another. But what we're going to be talking about today is gaming on Linux, because I do have a decent amount of commenters that do use Linux exclusively as their operating system of choice, and have been asking me for more Linux-based videos. So if that's you, you want to know more about what's going on the Linux side of things, this video is exactly what it's going to be. Before you get too far involved, though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. And if you can't tell already, because we're seeing Cyberpunk right now, this is going to be a mix of both modern games as well as retro emulation. And I will leave the specs of each PC that this is running on in the description below, because when we get to the Super Mario 64 footage, that's actually running on a micro PC running Linux. But honestly, Linux gaming has definitely come a long way in the last maybe 10 years or so, and I'm sure that's why I get a lot of requests, especially on emulation, to see what's going on in Linux. I'd say basically every single major emulator out there does have a Linux build. Now, I personally am not a Linux user, even though commenters are always saying I should switch over to it, and that is just because primarily I use my PC for work, and because all of my tool set runs perfectly on Windows, it's one of those things I never bother to change anything up because I need my system up and running all the time. But as far as the performance in Cyberpunk here on the spec system in the description below, it is running relatively well, and that is one of those things that we're seeing more and more of as Linux moves on and kind of becomes more of a mature gaming operating system. Now, don't hate me in the comments. I know Linux has been around for a long time and it is mature, but there definitely are things that just work better on Windows when it comes to your gaming. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me, what operating system are you on, and have you ever tried to use Linux before? I think one of the things that trips most people up is just how many distros there are of that operating system. If you want Windows, basically you just get Windows. If you want Mac OS, you basically just get Mac OS. But if you want Linux, there are dozens of different distros out there, some for productivity, some for basic web browsing, and some that are more focused towards gaming. And then when you add all of the different Linux distros in for those front ends on emulation, things like Raspberry Pi, suddenly you realize it's basically the sky is the limit for what distro you use. So if you are playing Linux, you just leave me that comment down below and tell me what distro you like, because I might test some in the future, because I got enough PC parts around here. I could build a second PC just for Linux and make more videos on it. But again, sometimes I just run videos where the entire point is to talk about something you've been asking me about and also see if there is interest out there, so that's definitely this. And honestly, Cyberpunk 2077, a ton of fun. I originally tried to play it on launch day, and let me tell you, at that point in time, it didn't matter what operating system you were on, it ran like absolute trash and was a hot buggy mess, but I actually finished the game back before any of those updates came out. I've never actually gone back to it, and I definitely should, but trust me, trying to get this game to do anything back in the day when it was released was on hard mode, no matter the PC spec you brought along for the ride. Well, let's move over to something both modern and retro at the same time. This is the Super Mario 64 PC port. We've been talking a lot about N64 recomps and different decomps, and this is one that you can run on Linux. And this is a Latte Panda 3 Delta. A big thanks to Andy D for helping with the captures. This is his device, and he was basically talking about the fact that he could get it running at full speed here. We're on Windows on a similarly spec system, and trust me, this is low power. It wasn't working the same. Now, this is definitely part and parcel something you have to deal with when you're in Linux. You have to have a little bit more command line experience. So it is going to be one of those things. Once you understand how it works, it's going to be seamless, but it can take a little bit more of a learning curve if it's something you've never done before. And that is kind of, I think, why a lot of people maybe never go towards Linux, because if they didn't grow up in command line era, if you didn't have DOS back in the day, maybe you started on Windows 95, your likelihood that you know a lot of those commands, especially when you pivot over to Linux, could just be completely zero. But honestly, this is running really well, and Linux is a great place for those low-powered boards, because basically every single Raspberry Pi built out there is running on some flavor of Linux with that front end. But this performance is good, and it is exciting to see. And again, because a lot of this is emulation focused, at least on my channel, and what you guys comment on is the type of thing I like taking a look at, even if this is a PC port and not straight N64 emulation. And as far as the sound quality is concerned, it sounded good to my ears as well, because sometimes that's where you hear things that might not be perfect. But go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and come back, because I got more Linux gaming to show you. Now that just sounds like Super Mario 64, and that's because it is just Super Mario 64, but you can tell that the emulation, or at least in this instance the PC porting of it, is working perfectly fine, because if the sound was off, it'd be one of the easiest things to detect. So as far as Linux working with these PC ports, the recomps, the decomps, and things like that, not every single one is going to have a native Linux build, so it's one of those situations, if you do use Linux exclusively, if you want to play around with it, you have to realize that not every single thing out there is going to work for it. You're always going to see a Windows build. More often than not, you're going to see a Mac OS and Linux build as well, but it isn't a guarantee that everything is going to be on Linux, and I think that is one of the #1 complaints about it in general. But honestly, it's just down to the developers whether or not they want to make a Linux build. But let's play some God of War on a Linux machine as well. If you do see some screen tearing, apparently this is just an issue in the capture because it was running on a 144 Hz panel. But when it's captured at 60 frames per second, what you have to exhibit on YouTube, every once in a while you can get some tearing here and there. And I'm going to say something that maybe might be a little bit controversial, but as far as the most recent God of War is concerned, I've loved the gameplay, but the story is way too long and honestly takes control away from the player a little bit too much. And you will see here when you play around with the settings, sometimes you're going to see some texture pop in, or at least those textures get from low quality to high quality. That's just something we have basically across the board on games now, whether you're on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch 2, or PC. Just kind of how it works. But honestly, the performance here is good, and it is fun to be able to play some of these major releases over on Linux as well. Whether you have a native build or you're running them through something like Proton on Steam Deck or any other Steam OS that you can run on PC. You can leave me a comment down below and you tell me, what did you think about the most recent God of War? I would be curious, because I feel like maybe I'm not unique in the fact that I feel like some modern games now just take too much control away from the player and have too much storytelling. And don't get me wrong, I love a good story in games, but sometimes it goes on a little bit too long. We're not talking about Metal Gear Solid 4 levels of watch this next cutscene for 45 minutes and then play the game for 10 minutes until the next cutscene plays, but it can sometimes feel a little excessive, especially when the story is maybe like a B- tier. And again, it's not like I don't love God of War, I absolutely do, but I just feel like the writing on this one could have been a little bit better. But again, not really the point of this video. We're talking about gaming on Linux, not really whether or not God of War was a game that you should have loved, hated, or somewhere in between. You leave me your thoughts down below in the comments, because I love chatting with you guys and hearing what you think. Now moving over to Spider-Man, another game that has a really fun visual styling to it, even if I feel like maybe they need to work on those eyes a little bit, because honestly, as good as 3D graphics are getting, the eye uncanny valley thing is still something that absolutely takes me out of games. And I'm not saying it's just this developer here, I'm saying that so many games just have this really weird thing going on in the eyes, where they're going for this really photorealistic 3D style. This entire house looks like a real place, that Christmas tree looks stunning, but that eye set right there just absolutely makes it seem like it's some sort of android wearing a human skin over the top, because when you see them from behind here, everything looks great, those hands look amazing, but when you actually see the eyes moving around, there's just something about them that never hits. But as far as the Linux performance, it definitely has nothing to do with eyes whatsoever. Again, it is another game that just seems to be working really well, and that is the thing with Linux now, especially with Steam, and especially with the Steam Deck, with all of those Proton layers, you're getting more games that just can work. You sit down, you play them, and you never really think that they weren't natively made for Linux. You can just have fun, and that's all you really want. You don't want to be working too much on the underlying tech. You don't want to worry about whether or not a game is going to work. You just want to sit down, grab the controller, and have your fun, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what operating system you use. If a game isn't fun and it doesn't run, that is a bummer. But here's one more soundtrack sample, and I'll be right back.
Hey, yourself! Signal relays are being jammed by something. This is crazy tech. Hate to do this, but...
Sensors are back online. What did you do?
Took care of the guy messing with it. And it looks like they left some of their toys behind.
I mean, again, just sounds good to me. And now this is the point in the video where I actually ask you guys what you might want to see if I do more Linux videos. And I put these questions at the end because I like to see how long people watch a video for. Because if people click on this and leave in a minute and a half, I know it's probably not something that's going to work for the future of the channel. And if it has a good click-through rate and a good retention rate, I know maybe I'm onto something. Because as much as I want to make everything you guys want to see, it also has to do views, or else it really can't affect the channel. And that's kind of just the bummer of YouTube. I sometimes make videos I know are going to do terribly because I really want to talk about it, but I do have to manage that with also making videos that I know are going to be popular. So again, this really is a test to see if Linux gaming videos, whether emulation or otherwise, would be good for the channel. So definitely leave me that comment down below and tell me, if I make more Linux videos, what would you like to see specifically? Emulation, some underpowered small boards, things like that. I just would be curious. And if you are wondering, yes, on Linux you can emulate a ton of stuff. This is Zeldor, Hot Breath of the Wild, and obviously I'm kind of obscuring exactly what I'm doing here, but you can emulate basically any modern system out there on Linux. If you can emulate it on Windows, if you can emulate it on Mac, chances are there is a Linux platform as well. And because I talk a lot about emulation, that might be something I do in the future as far as talking about Linux gaming is concerned. But that's the video. Leave me a comment, tell me what you want to see in the future, and if it isn't Linux, tell me what it is you want to see. But I'll see you guys next time. That's a lot of C's. Bye bye.
What could be down here?